Asian markets bounce back, tracking Wall Street's gains as investor optimism spreads across global markets. Global renewable power generation sees rapid investment and growth. And we look at the EV market share in the US, which varies significantly across several regions. Hello, I'm Toba Aydin with the latest business and finance news here on TRT World. Asia-Pacific markets opened higher on Thursday following record highs on Wall Street. From China's rebound to new liquidity measures, investors are closely watching economic data and fiscal policies that continue to shape the financial landscape. South Korea's Kospi rose 0.6% and Australia's S&P ASX 200 gained 0.3%. Meanwhile, Japan's Nikkei 225 rose by 0.3%, driven by positive economic data and strong performance in global markets. China's CSI 300 index bounced back, gaining nearly 3%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng surged more than 4%. These increases followed stimulus measures introduced at the end of September, boosting investor confidence and reversing a 7% drop the previous session. The People's Bank of China launched a $71 billion liquidity tool aimed at making it easier for financial institutions to buy stocks. This initiative is part of a broader effort to stabilize markets and drive long-term economic growth in the region. Wall Street saw major gains as the S&P 500 climbed 0.7% to an all-time high of 5,792. The Dow surged 431.63 points, or just over 1%, also reaching a record close. For more, let's bring in Josh Mahoney. He's Chief Market Analyst at Scope Markets. Good to see you, Josh. Now, what's driving the recent optimism on Wall Street, particularly those record highs that we're seeing on the S&P and Dow?
You know, it feels like US markets are in somewhat of a Goldilocks situation, right? If we can position ourselves where we see easing from the central banks and at the same time we don't necessarily see that recession, we don't see that hard landing coming into play, then you don't necessarily have to fear about the valuation of your stocks over the near term. And you also have the upside of easing from central banks, the possibility of us moving beyond this period where we see this election uncertainty moving out the way. And so everything looks hunky-dory, and we can expect to see enhanced earnings growth as the central bank focuses on growth and not inflation. Whether that's going to all hold exactly as it is at the moment remains to be seen. But it's notable that, you know, despite the fact that we're seeing a shift away from expectations of a 50 basis point cut and towards a 25 basis point cut, markets are still happy. As long as we continue to cut interest rates and we see the economy holding up well, then I think it's a good position to be in.
Now, let's look at the stimulus measures introduced in China. How are they affecting overall market rebounds at the moment?
Well, look, I mean, it was the fact that they released quite so many at one time that really caught markets off guard. We've grown quite accustomed to the fact that the PBOC have announced the odd rate cut here or there. This time around, it feels different, and it feels like they want to essentially mark the bottom of this downturn for the Chinese economy, but also for the Chinese stock market. And that's the kind of thing that really excites people, because, of course, people always want to find the bottom within the market and try and get in at the best price. And it does feel like the actions from the PBOC, whether it's the rate cuts on what banks are going to have to pay the PBOC to borrow from them, or whether it's the amount that they have to have as capital and therefore the amount they can borrow or lend out is going to be higher, or whether it's measures to prop up the equity market or measures to prop up the housing market. There's a lot that goes into that. It's difficult to ascertain exactly how it's all going to play out. At the moment, it's all really about sentiment. We haven't, of course, seen it actually impact the Chinese economy per se.
And how significant is the new $70 billion liquidity tool announced by the Bank of China on Thursday?
Yeah, exactly. So we, of course, at the inception of this, we heard that they were planning to implement measures that were going to prop up the equity markets. We didn't necessarily see the sort of meat on the bone being fleshed out, so to speak. They're now announcing 500 billion yuan's worth of essentially swap lines where you can see the likes of pension funds or institutions relying on this, where they can come forward and put up collateral, whether it's the likes of bonds or it could be equities. And from that, they can borrow to be able to invest even more in highly liquid assets. That essentially means that they can leverage up what they have already and try to get in at a bigger size into some of these moves. So certainly it just provides more fuel for the fire, quite frankly, and certainly from a sentiment standpoint as well, because we don't know how much is going to be taken up. From a sentiment standpoint, it's all good news and really plays into the idea that they want to mark a bottom for the equity markets.
All right, Josh Mahoney, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much, as always. Now a quick look at some of the other top business stories from around the world. Japan's wholesale inflation rose 2.8% in September, higher than expected, but falling import prices due to the yen's rebound suggest that cost pressures from raw materials are easing. This shift may lead the Bank of Japan to focus on whether inflation driven by demand will increase. Japan's core consumer inflation stayed above 2%. Meanwhile, economists believe that higher wages could push up spending, possibly leading to another rate hike in December. British drug maker GSK has agreed to pay $2.3 billion to settle lawsuits in the US over claims that its Zantac heartburn drug causes cancer. As part of the settlement, GSK will pay another $70 million in a separate case. The lawsuits follow a 2019 warning from the US Food and Drug Administration after it found some drugs contained low levels of a contaminant considered a probable carcinogen. Sales of Tesla's China-made electric vehicles rose 19.2% in September year-on-year. The car maker sold more than 72,000 EVs in China's domestic market, up 66% annually. That's as Chinese rival BYD also recorded its best month with a more than 45% rise year-on-year in passenger vehicle sales. And Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway has raised $1.9 billion in a yen-denominated bond deal. It's the largest sale in the Japanese currency in 5 years. The company says the proceeds raised will be used for general corporate purposes. The move is expected to deepen Berkshire Hathaway's financial ties with Japan's capital markets. As countries continue to invest in green projects, the International Energy Agency has predicted renewables will power nearly half of the world's electricity by the end of this decade. According to the IEA's Renewables 2024 report, the world is set to add over 5,500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. That's almost 3 times the growth seen between 2017 and 2023. This increase is equivalent to the combined power capacity of China, the European Union, India, and the United States today. Still, this expansion falls short of the United Nations goal set at the COP28 climate conference to triple global capacity. The IEA states that achieving this target will require governments to modernize and build 25 million kilometers of electricity grids and reach 1,500 gigawatts of storage capacity by 2030. Solar energy will lead the charge, contributing 80% of the expected capacity growth. Falling costs and greater government backing are helping homes and businesses invest in solar panels. Meanwhile, wind energy is on track for a major rebound, with its growth rate expected to double compared to the previous 6 years. China will dominate the renewable energy landscape, accounting for nearly 60% of global installations by 2030. The country will have almost half the world's renewable capacity, up from just a third in 2010. Europe and the US will contribute about 30% of global renewable power generation, with Brazil, India and Turkey also emerging as key players. For more on this, I'm joined by Filiz Katman. She's president of the Energy, Politics and Markets Research Centre at Istanbul Aydın University. Thank you very much for joining us. Now, what are the key drivers behind the projected 5,500 gigawatts of renewable energy growth by 2030?
Yes, we had very ambitious goals with regard to renewable energy capacities, share in the total capacity. But we have the COVID-19 pandemic, as you have mentioned in your news video. UN targets are much ambitious than this, but because of this COVID-19, we are stumbling to achieve these goals. Moreover, we should also consider the ongoing geopolitical conflicts, first began in Ukraine, then now in the Middle East, which also disrupted the ambitious targets because of the lack of investment, because of let's say, more excitement with regard to risks to keep the energy balance on track. So that's why, unfortunately, UN targets are much ambitious than we have achieved right now. But still, it is better than nothing. We are achieving towards having wider share of the renewables in the total picture. And because of that, many countries should consider renewable energy investments more than ever because of the environmental challenges that we have experiencing right now. In America, Florida, they are experiencing a very huge weather conditions, extreme weather conditions. So that's why we should be more ambitious than we are right now.
All right, Filiz Katman, we will have to leave it there. Filiz Katman, President of the Energy, Politics and Markets Research Center at Istanbul Aydın University. Thank you very much for joining us.
It is.
Now, Foxconn has set its sights on building the world's largest manufacturing plant for leading chipmaker NVIDIA. The plant will produce NVIDIA's GB200 superchips used to power supercomputers to tackle advanced AI tasks. Emre Boz has more.
Artificial intelligence, a technology meant to perform or even outperform jobs that normally require the human mind. And at the core of AI technology are superchips. Many companies are racing to see who can produce them to make AI applications even better. And leading the race is chipmaker NVIDIA, working with the largest electronics manufacturer Foxconn to build its superchips.
AI key components, AI key modules and boards, AI server and rack, high-performance switches, AI data center. Foxconn will be the first to ship these superchips.
Foxconn has set its sights on Mexico to build the world's largest chip manufacturing plant for NVIDIA. The goal? To manufacture and expand the production of NVIDIA's GB200 superchips. NVIDIA says it expects several $1 billion in revenue from these chips in the fourth quarter of this year.
We're building the largest GB200 production facility on the planet.
These chips, built specific for AI tools and technology, are at the core of automation. As these chips become better, so too will the efficiency in these companies to build faster and cheaper chips, reinforcing a cycle of productivity.
Artificial intelligence makes business sense. AI is embedded in automation. Automation is productivity. Our customers told us they want to see more automation. This is an almost one-fold increase in productivity when automation is deployed in our factories.
There are fears that as AI gets better, it may put more and more people out of jobs. Goldman Sachs says that roughly 2/3 of US occupations are exposed to some degree of automation by AI. And globally, they say at least 300 million jobs will be automated. But for now, as AI technology continues to make giant strides, the profits will continue to climb for companies like NVIDIA. Emre Boz, TRT World.
The Israeli economy is facing its toughest challenge to date because of the ongoing conflicts and internal political divisions. Businesses are closing, tourism has collapsed, and the construction sector is at a standstill. Since October 7th, Israel's stock market and currency have plummeted, with economic losses projected to reach $100 billion by 2025. TRT World's Mohammed Al-Qasim has more.
Israel's war on Gaza has turned the once highly regarded Israeli economy upside down. Almost a year into the war on Gaza, Israel's economy is facing its steepest decline in years. With two active fronts, military spending is swelling, borrowing is skyrocketing, and revenues are drying up. International trust in the economy is also dwindling.
And the impact on some sectors is very grave. If we talk about tourism, tourism was basically devastated. Construction was hurt. There is a boycott.
Agriculture, hospitality, tech, and tourism are also casualties. Some 200,000 Palestinians who used to commute daily from the occupied West Bank, as well as 18,500 from Gaza, are all now locked out of Israel since October the 7th. Israel says due to security concerns, leaving an economic crunch on both sides of the border.
We were directly affected because, as you can see, this project relied on 35 workers from the West Bank with the official work permits.
Even Jerusalem's iconic American Colony Hotel has had to lay off workers and are mulling pay cuts because of the slumping occupancy.
That are at one point closing for a few months because that might have been, from a purely economic way, a method of stemming some of the losses.
Tourism, a pillar of Israel's economy, has ground to a halt.
Now, no tourists. No, not tourists. Not very much.
Israel is also borrowing heavily to fund its war on Gaza and Lebanon, and Israeli economists fear a wider war in the Middle East could strain the economy even further. Recently, Israel's credit rating was downgraded.
I think it reflects the low trust of Moody's and other rating agencies in the steps of the Israeli government to lower inflation, to deal and to cope with the higher deficit, as we see as a negative impact of the ongoing war.
There is also a belief that Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich is working to exacerbate the crisis.
What he basically wants to keep on pouring money into his priorities, which is namely the settlements, the West Bank, etc. And at the same time, he expects other arms of the government to tighten their belts and to stop spending.
Last month, Israel's Knesset approved a massive budget increase of $924 million for 2024, despite warnings from opposition and financial experts. Just like the country itself, Israel's economy is at war. The remainder of 2024 is going to be a pitched battle, and if the situation doesn't improve in Gaza or Lebanon, the financial and economic struggle looks set to continue in 2025. Mohammed Al-Qasim, TRT World, West Jerusalem.
The chairman emeritus of the Tata Group, Ratan Tata, has died at the age of 86. Tributes have been pouring in from India and across the world, remembering the business tycoon known for taking brand India to the global stage and his generous donations to charities. He took over the conglomerate in 1991 from his uncle JRD, who had led the group for 5 decades. The billionaire tycoon always shied away from the spotlight and is remembered as a true icon for his modesty. Smita Sharma reports from New Delhi.
It feels like a personal loss here as India and Indians collectively mourn the passing away of one of the most internationally recognized Indian business tycoons, Mr. Ratan Tata, who breathed his last at a hospital in Mumbai Wednesday late night. He had been ailing of old age. He was 86 years old, but remained spirited forever. Now, people are really remembering their personal and professional associations with Mr. Ratan Tata, and it's stunning to see the use of words like like integrity, honesty, commitment, compassion, values that are in fact being used while remembering him. Because in a world today where you have crony capitalists, businessmen, industrialists whose net worth may really be high to the tunes of billions of dollars, but there is always that ugly display of disproportionate wealth and assets, something that was never associated with Mr. Tata, who lived a very simple life, living in Colaba, taking care of stray animals. He was equally kind to human beings and to animals as well, giving in donations to the tunes of billions of rupees, also building cancer hospitals, schools across India, a lot of medical high research institutes as well. He led a conglomerate that has more than 100 companies, employs more than 660,000 people. It's known as the salt to the software conglomerate, Tata Group, which has, salt. It also has airlines. It was known for the international acquisitions under Mr. Ratan Tata, be it of Land Rover, of Jaguar, or in 2000 when he acquired Tetley, which is basically the world's second largest tea making company. And that was one of the largest Indian acquisitions of a global brand ever. So the Prime Minister, President, the opposition figures, political bigwigs, celebrities, business tycoons, artists, all remembering Mr. Ratan Tata in the fondest of ways. Mr. Sundar Pichai there also tweeting and pouring in his condolences there. He will be bid farewell with a state funeral in Maharashtra, where a one-day mourning is being observed. But, you can have a whole bunch of businessmen, but this is truly the end of an era with a legendary icon no more.
In Ghana, people are risking their lives digging for gold. This mining, known as Galamsey, is a booming business, but the price is high for the diggers and for the environment. Malik Fuda has the story.
In Ghana's forests, miners dig through muddy water hoping to find small pieces of gold. This illegal mining, called Galamsey, has grown fast. It helps people make money, but it also causes serious harm to the environment and the miners themselves. And despite all the risks, the rising price of gold this year has pushed more people to turn to this dangerous work.
When I started mining, I made more than $5,000. So I got in and I took boys, and we started doing the Galamsey.
The effects of Galamsey go beyond the gold. Hazardous chemicals like mercury are polluting rivers, making water unsafe to drink. Scientists say 65% of Ghana's water sources are now contaminated. Large areas of forests and cocoa farms are being destroyed by this illegal mining. The gold industry is also linked to the crime. Around 80% of these small mines are unlicensed.
Potentially 70 to 80% of gold miners are not licensed. So it's an industry that is very informal and it makes it easy for organized crime to get involved.
While Galamsey provides income for some, it doesn't help Ghana's economy. Most of the gold is smuggled out, so the country doesn't see the benefits. People often do trade under the table.
There can be, for example, differences in the invoicing between exports and imports. So the volume of gold reported to be exported out of Ghana is not the same amount up to the countries where it's going to, like Dubai. So there is a discrepancy between the volumes, demonstrating that there is smuggling involved and there is perhaps money laundering because there are differences in the data.
Ghana's wildcat gold mining is putting both the environment and the health of its people at risk. The government says it has tried to stop it without success. Meanwhile, miners are chasing gold, but the costs are high, and the damage may take years to fix. Malik Fuda, TRT World.
To Madagascar, where pressure continues to pile on the government to halt a multi-billion-dollar highway project. The road scheme will cut through protected areas. The project is also coming under scrutiny over its financial feasibility. Brenda Rodido reports.
Families living near Madagascar's highway project say they're filled with regret and emotional pain. For farmers like Randriana Solomanana, it's just a matter of hours, if not days, before the government's bulldozer flattens his lush rice field and the Malagasy rice cultivation culture with it.
If this highway project touches the rice fields, the impact on people's livelihood will be colossal. Everything will be destroyed.
The project has also sparked debate between the government and environmental conservationists over the destruction of the island's unique biodiversity.
The idea of the highway is excellent, but the idea of passing through a protected area is a little less so. So the aim is to combine conservation and development at the same time, and we think it's possible, but not in the present case.
But the government denies this and insists the highway will improve connectivity, promote tourism, and boost trade.
I believe and hope that we will work together, and it's not the current government that's going to destroy the environment. So we have to reach an agreement, and the route is well on the way.
Also on their way out are farmers here who are weighing how soon to uproot their lives and livelihoods for a new highway. Brenda Radido, TRT World.
Well, that's all your business news for now. Thanks for watching.